Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Radhe Radhe. Dhanyavad Vijay ji. Okay, Bhavan, Bahu Samichanam Sanskrit Kakshayam Pathasi.
Pathayati. Pathayasi. Pathayasi.
Pathayasi. Okay.
Very
Dhanyavad.
nice. Dhanyavad.
Okay, Radhe Radhe everyone. Hope you all had an amazing weekend, amazing devotional weekend given the ongoing sadhana shivir in Puri that we all can attend online. So over to you, Nitinji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Sandhya. Radhe Radhe. Am I audible? Are you able to hear?
Yes, yes.
It's great. Bahu Samichanam. That's all I have today. Didn't follow much of today's class, but I'll try to make up for it next week. So Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Is my audio okay, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So thanks everybody. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. We'll get started. We will talk about the peace formula today. And let me share my screen and we will get started with the topic of our discussion today. Let me share my screen and we will get underway. Let me know if once you're able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so we'll get started like we always do by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right. A very warm good morning, good evening to all of you. Let's get started. So today I picked up the Shloka. It's a very important Shloka, like all the Shlokas in Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to recite it and then you're welcome to follow along. Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumchancharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Radhe Radhe Samji.
Radhe Radhe Samji.
Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan pumansyarati nispruhaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Very nice, Samji. So I know there is a retreat going on in Banara and Swamiji's discourse is going to start, I think, believe shortly. I thought it was going to be at 10:30. 10 o'clock, but seems like it's at 9:30. So we'll see how best we can cover today. And I don't want it to have a overlap with that. So we'll see how far we can go and we'll try to close it on time today. Maybe a little overlap given that it's at 9:30 if at all. But we'll see how we proceed. So let's pick up a few more hands and then keep going.
Yes. I would encourage people to turn on their videos.
You can turn on your videos.
Yes, Rameshji, Radhe Radhe. Please
Radhe
go.
Radhe, Rameshji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumamshcharati nisprihah nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Very nice, Rameshji. Radhe Radhe.
Shri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Shri Ramya.
Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kaman yasarvan. Sorry. Vihaya kaman yasarvan puman charati nispriha nirmamo nirahankarasa shantim adhigacchati.
Wonderful, very nice, Shri Ramya.
Priya ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Vihaya kamanya sarvam pumascharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Very
Radhe
nice.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Okay, we can pick up the remaining hands, 2 or 3 hands that we see.
Ashutosh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Shiroshi.
Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kamanya sarvam pumansarati nispriha nirmamo nirahankaraha sasantimadhigacchati.
Wonderful.
And Sandhya ji, this is not letting me switch on video. It's saying that post is disabled it somehow.
Yes. Yeah, we will sort this out. Yeah. Thank you for telling me. Yeah. Okay, Sumesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please
Yeah,
go ahead.
more hands.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Sumesh.
Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumanscharati nishpriha nirmamo nirahankaraha sasantim adhigacchati. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful. Very nice, Sumesh. Last but not the least, Aparna ji. Or Sandhya is also there. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Aparna ji.
Sorry.
I think you have 2 devices. So. Okay.
Yeah,
Next
Aparna.
all then.
Maybe I'll unmute her once again and see if it's fine now. Aparna ji. Radhe Radhe.
Can you hear me?
There's
Aparna
echo.
ji,
I
you
think you have
have
2 devices on.
2 devices on. You may have.
Okay. This should be good. I
Now
Yeah,
it's fine.
closed.
that's fine.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No
Vihaya kamanya sarvan puman sharati nishprihaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Very nice, Aparna ji. Radhe Radhe. Okay. Last but not the least, Sandhya.
Okay, yeah. Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan pumancharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankarah sashantim adhigacchati.
Wonderful. Okay, I see one more hand. Yes, Pragi ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Vihaya kamanaye sarvan pumansharati. Sorry. I just Vihaya kamanaye sarvan. Sorry, I forgot the rhythm.
No worries.
I just joined.
Okay.
Can
No
you please repeat once more if don't mind?
It's Vihaya Kamanya Sarvan Pumansharati Nispraha Nirmamo Nirahankaraha Sashantim Adhigacchati.
May I?
Sure, please.
Vihaya kamanaye sarvan pumascharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankarsa shantim adhigacchati.
Thank you, Pragi ji. So we'll freeze the hand one more and then we'll get started.
Yes, Sairam ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumanscharati nishprihaha nirmamo nirankaraha sashantim adhigacchati.
Wonderful. Very nice, Sairamji. So let's get started. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying that person who gives up all material desires and lives free from a sense of greed, proprietorship, and egotism attains perfect peace. So let's get started. Here is the formula that Lord Krishna is giving us for perfect peace. Right? This is the formula that we are going to talk about in today's discussion. So welcome again. Let's get started. So you're not hearing any background or anything, right? It's all good, my audio?
Yes, all is well.
Okay. If it is not all well, just to give you a quick context, okay, I'm going to take off my virtual. You'll understand where I am, okay? So if some unprecedented noise comes, it's not because of me. So you'll understand. All right. So let's get started. Just give me a second. So ego, there is an acronym, Swamiji has given, beautiful acronym that he has given is edging God out. Okay, so we will talk about the different components of this ego and why, and Lord Krishna has actually given it one of the things that we need to work on in order to attain peace. A lot of things that we feel or the feelings that trouble us is because of this ego thing, and that also has some sub components around it as well. So we will continue on this plus the other things. Now let's start with this ego. Now a lot of quarrels, they erupt between people, they stem from the ego itself. McCormack, who's a author of What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, writes that if you go to companies, especially corporates or people who are at bigwigs or are at higher positions, they say that their executives are one giant ego with a couple of arms and legs sticking out. That much huge ego they carry with regards to how they operate with people around. Now, even the statistics, they reveal, if you look at it, that majority of executives who lose their job, they don't do it because of their professional incompetence, but because of interpersonal issues. Same thing happens for employees also. Very few employees, they lose job because of their professional competence. Most of them lose there because they just don't know how to work properly with them. Either they'll have ego problems, attitude problems, they can't get along, they don't know how to navigate. And that is where either they lose job or they are forced to quit. So it is a big problem that needs to be first understood and then tackled as well. Okay. Let's move further. So it is counterintuitive. The way to peace is not to nurture and increase pride, but to get rid of it. Right? And we will talk about the self-respect, self-esteem, and all that stuff as well. How do you see that in perspective? Right? The self-esteem, self-respect, dignity, if you look at these components, they define the self. And where do you draw the line between an ego that is not good for you, either materially or spiritually, and how do you make it so that it works in your favor, right? At the same time, you need to use this ego to work on your ego until that ego is no longer needed. We say that a lot of self-esteem is where you learn how to stand up for yourself. In fact, this is the theory that is picking up, the more humble you become, the better self-esteem you would have. It is counterintuitive, but this is how it works. Because now you are closer to the truth. Humility is not about considering yourself as a doormat. It is all about understanding where do you stand in grand scheme of thing, and that will bring in the true self-confidence and self-esteem, because you know that in grand scheme of things, you are nothing but a servant of God. And when you operate like that, like one, you get all the necessary resources to operate effectively from God himself, because he'll provide for it. Okay? You may say this sounds a little hocus pocus, but this is how it works when you work with that attitude. Let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about the ego aspect of it, how the psychoanalytical theory from Sigmund Freud, he's the father of modern psychology, right? And the psychoanalyst, what does he talk about it? So there are three components to it. The first one is called id. It is driven by pleasure principle or our instinct principle, and it is a biological component. So if you look at kids, all they care for is, I'm feeling hungry, I need to be fed. I'm feeling thirsty, I need to be given water. I feel, somebody, basically, I desire to be taken care of. or so somebody needs to touch. So that is a very, very primal instinct to begin with, id. So that is the first component of our ego. The second part is the conscious one, which is driven by reality orientation, which is the psychological component, right? Which is conscious. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And the third one is called superego, which is the conscience part of it, where you are driven by not just by your conditioning or your primal instinct, but by the moral principle. What is the right thing to do in this kind of a situation or a circumstance? So if you actually map it to our scriptural principles, or what Swamiji explains so nicely about our mind, the first two actually operate at the level of mind, man. And the intellect aspect is where the conscience parts comes in. What is the right thing to do in this kind of a situation? Not what your mind is telling. Mind might be leading us astray. So you override that. And if we are simply driven by instincts, if we spend our life just by being instinctive around, this is what my senses asking me to do, or this is what my mind is telling me to do, that is a very, very basic instinct that kids have. And we become adult babies, and we depart this world as an adult baby only, because all we care for is instinct. Buddhi Yoga aspect of Bhagavad Gita is going to say, rise above the instincts or the whims of your senses and mind, and go harness the power of your superego, the conscience, arm your intellect with knowledge, proper knowledge, so that you can use it to your advantage. So that is how it goes. Furthermore, let's look at this part. What is it driven from? Now this, if you look at it, over attachment to self, that can lead to ego. Very sensitive to criticism. These are some of the reasons or the symptoms which can result in ego. Very, very sensitive to criticisms. Right? When people say bad things, we are not able to take it. That means we have a big ego. Okay. Or when we are super attached to ourselves, we just think about ourselves. That is also our ego only. There's a beautiful saying in English that if I won't think about myself, who else will? But if that is all I do, then who am I? So we need to look at it in perspective. Moving on, it can become an hurdle for personal and professional achievements as well. Ego, big time. Ego battles are the ones which are the biggest spoilers for relationships. A lot of relationships, they end because of the ego battle that takes place between two personalities. Ideological battle is one thing, but more often than not, it is an ego battle where you are not willing to budge or bat an eyelid in front of others. False self-image, unreasonably heightened. Ego is there as well, where you might be a cat, but you look upon yourself as a tiger in the mirror. Okay, that heightened, unreasonable, heightened perception of your own reality is also ego, big time ego. Now let's look at some of the things. We'll not get too much into detail, because people would say that self-respect, where does that fall in? Right? Because God has given us a, in peace formula, if you look at it, ego has been mentioned as one of the things that needs to be put in perspective for us to get closer to the peace. Some of the, you can actually take a note of it. We are not going to get too deep into it, but ego is driven by, underlying feeling of insecurity and self-doubt. Self-respect is driven by feelings of self-worth and self-confidence. There are subtle differences between. Ego brings pride, and it's like self-pride, even it results in, you may alienate yourself from your friends and relatives. But that is how ego goes. It is more about self-respect, about self-control and worth, where you don't want to be, diminish your own esteem, self-esteem, so to say. Now, this is self-elation, where person is not ready to accept anything that makes him feel inferior. It results in resentment and drive the person away from reality. On the other hand, it is a shield for fighting against threat to self-esteem and balance between what I feel and what others feel. Okay, that is the self-respect aspect of it. Anyways, I'll put down all these points. This is defense against, you anticipate insult or rejection from people. This one is self-oriented. Egoists, they don't admit their mistakes. They're always right. And they often feel humility. And this is an unhealthy competition, rivalry, and There's an urge to prove yourself. This is what ego is basically. And these people don't care even if they have to demean others. However, self-respect is more positive oriented. It's more about enhancing your inner strength. It's logical, not headstrong. And at the same time, you are able to serve without getting headstrong. You can preserve your self-worth if you're able to strike that balance. And people who are associated with people who care for self-respect, they often have an understanding and mutually rewarding relationship. That is where mature relationships are. They give each other space, and it's rarely an ego battle at that point. Now, egoist people, they are emotionally vulnerable. On the other hand, the other people, if you look at it purely from a self-respect, it actually empowers them and teaches them how they to value themselves, and they become self-independent. So there are subtle differences between these two. Getting rid of ego doesn't mean you lose your self-esteem or your self-worth. Okay, it's an important concept to be understood, because people often confuse it. Okay, you're telling me to work on my ego. Does it mean I'm going to become a doormat for anybody? Our scriptures explain it through a very beautiful story that, a cobra or a snake, if it doesn't hiss, it will get squished by people. So just because it is hissing doesn't mean it has to bite. Okay, so for your self protection, you may wear certain armor around you in order to operate effectively, so that people don't take you for a ride. But that doesn't mean you have a false sense of ego, where you are actually taking an ego ride, proving yourself right in front of others, and always thinking that you can't take on insult or things like that. In fact, self-respect comes from a position of reality, which is humility. So let's move on. So there's a beautiful saying. If you look at this tree, there are two trees. It's a story of two trees. Now, if you look at this tree on the right-hand side, it is erect, very firm and erect. And on the left-hand side, it has fruits on it, and it has actually bowed down. It is not erect at this point. So the point here is that humility brings in, when your stature increases, it brings in humility. In fact, even real knowledge brings in humility. There's a story of Amitabh Bachchan that, when he was struck with all those financial difficulties and stuff like that, he said, he realized a lot of realizations dawned upon him. Now, egoistic people, they will not bend in front of anybody. It's just like this tree. When the wind will come, it will just uproot it, because it is erect. It is not willing to budge. However, when you actually have virtues, it brings in humility. You are willing to bow down in front of others. Even nature tells us this example so beautifully. There was a king called Sher Shah Suri. No, Ranjit Singh rather. Ranjit Singh. So what happened was, there was a boy who was trying to get mangoes from his garden. So he threw a stone. The stone missed the mango and hit Ranjit Singh's eye. And when it hits his eye, he said, can you bring, the person who actually threw this stone on this tree and who has hit me? So they brought in that boy in front of him. And what Ranjit Singh does is, he gets him, he said, can you give him a bucket full of mangoes? So he said, he actually hit you. Why are you giving him mangoes? He said, if he had hit the tree, it would have given him the mango. How can I lower my stature, lower than that of a tree? So I need to raise myself at least to that level. So that is the key lesson here. A tree, a fruit-laden tree, even if you throw a stone at it, it will give you a fruit back. And the other one, if you hit a stone at it, it doesn't have the capacity to give you anything anyways. Right? So it's a good lesson from our nature as well. And there's a beautiful in Shishtastakam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanen Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So he said that become more humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. If you can do that, that itself is going to take you leaps and bounds on the path of spirituality. That is how important humility is. Or putting your ego in perspective is, So ego is like a thorn that we use to take on the thorn called ego. So using ego, you work on your ego, take out the other thorn until both thorns can be rejected. So it's very important to work on our ego is what the lesson is in this particular shloka. Not just limited to that though. Let's move on. And there's a saying in English, which is a beautiful one: a bad day for ego is a good day for the soul. So if somebody scolds you or hurls some bad words at you, and you are able to ride that with knowledge, it is very, very purifying for the soul. Nindak niyare rakhiye, Kabir Das had also said that, right? It's a huge, huge asset to have. Very difficult to practice, but if you are serious about progressing spiritually, this is a very, very good way to progress by increasing our, ability to tolerate criticism, or becoming humble, or to tolerate things which are not appealing to our ears and our mind. Okay. So that is the significance of humility. Doesn't mean you lose your self-respect or self-worth. Okay. It doesn't have to be confused with that. So let's understand that part. Now, material desires, the moment we... Yes, Sandhya, you had a question? So material desires are like this genie. So I will come back to that. Yes. What's the
There's
question?
a question from Ashutosh ji.
Mhm.
Any trick to do that, to be humble and polite?
Right question to wrong person. But what I would suggest is, just observe yourself. Typically, what happens is when we start observing our feelings, that is the very first step to tackling those feelings. So don't ride it immediately. I think we need to get better at it. I try to do it as best as I can, of course. But that is a trick that works for me. And then you bring in knowledge. You know what? My mind is conditioned. It is telling me to become impulsive and react and take the dopamine kick. But if I can ride this emotion with knowledge and with the resolve that I want to get better, I want to improve, good things will start happening. Try it out and you'll get better at it. Okay. I'm sure it will. It does work more of, it will work when you sincerely do that. So just observe your feelings. Your mind will say, go vent it out. Okay. If you won't vent it out, the other person will not stop. But you handle it gracefully, couple of times, you'll get better results. Right? That is why they say sometimes silence is more graceful than venting it out. And anyway, there's a saying in English that don't talk unless it improves the quality of the silence. So sometimes we just want to vent it out, ride our feelings, but when we start observing our feelings and know that it has started dirting it, and I think good things can happen just by becoming an observer of your own feelings. So material desires is like this genie, right? Jinn, who always needs something and it is never satiated. So when we harbor a desire, now we are walking into that trap. We know how the psychology unfolds, greed and anger. And in both cases, we get trapped. And the way to fulfill a desire is not by satiating it. And the path to inner peace does not lie in fulfilling the desires, but eliminating them. We'll talk about this as well. This is an interesting principle. We have spoken about this, right? If you fulfill a desire, it leads to greed. And if it is not, it leads to anger. Right? When your desire is obstructed. So then what is the way out? It's just like this genie, right? What do you do that? In fact, it is said in our mind is like this jinn, right? Which needs something all the times. And in Bhagavatam, there is a meditation where you go, you tell your jinn, your mind, to climb up all the way up to the morpunk and down to the toe of Krishna, and then back to the morpunk, tip of the torpunk, and then tip of the toe. You make it work up and down, and it will get tired and tamed finally. But that is a beautiful Rup Dhyan on the form of Krishna, right? Which is there in Bhagavatam. But this jinn, it needs something. So what Lord Krishna is saying, this jinn, even if you keep giving it everything, I will not get too much into detail of this one. We have spoken about it multiple times. This will still keep on. I say again, okay, there was an announcement, so I had to. So basically, what it says is, if you keep on satiating your greed, it will not give you happiness. And you can look at this table that I had created, that 1 unit of happiness in earth is if somebody is intelligent, ruler of entire planet, prime of youth, subjects are favorably aligned, all luxuries. That is 1 unit of youth, happiness in earth. And we don't even have a fraction of it in this world. It's not, we haven't gotten even a fraction of 1 unit of happiness. And theoretically, even if we had gotten it, you keep multiplying it by the factor of 1,000, it continues to go to Manav Gandharv, Dev Gandharv, Pitrilok, Agnalok, Karma, Dev, Indra, Brihaspati, Prajapati, all the way up to Brahma, and still your greed will not be satisfied, is what scriptures are saying. Okay, so fulfilling the greed or satiating it is not the way out, is what our scriptures are telling us very, very clearly. Okay, there's no point in pursuing them and hoping one day we will be able to eliminate them. Now, moving on. So this is, scriptures are telling us this is a great waste of time. What is a great waste of time? That material advancement in order for you to satiate your greed. Developed countries, very few people are deprived to eat and wear. In US, I look at it. But then hankering is still there. People are still dissatisfied. If that was the case, people should have been very happy. In fact, I was reading actually the happiness index. You know who is 6th in this world? Bangladesh. While it comes to their economic advancement, they are one of the poorest countries. But when it comes to their happiness index, it has nothing to do with that. That means satiating your desire has nothing to do with the true happiness that we are seeking. Now, those who possess the wealth of contentment possess one of the biggest treasures of life. So it is said that one who has most opulence is not the happiest person, but one who has the least number of desire or the wealth of contentment is the most wealthiest person. And it's a beautiful analogy. You look at the centipede here. Now just imagine if centipede were to suffer from arthritis, how bad it would be. You know, a centipede suffering from arthritis. So if you pose this predicament in front of our, you know, what would a centipede do? So an owl comes and says, you know what, I have a solution for him. So it asks what? He said, just reduce your limbs from 100 to 2. Now, how to do that? He said that I can't do. I'm just a policy maker. But the point here is, the more desires or the tentacles of your desires are there, the more miserable you will feel. So if you can only reduce or streamline your desires to what is truly beneficial for you or what is needed for your survival, then you have already reduced the pain by that factor. A centipede, only if you had 2 limbs, your pain would be reduced by the factor of 98%. So this is the formula basically that Lord Krishna is giving as well. We are suffering from an arthritic pain as well of desires. And you start, don't keep on adding desires. It will only going to make it worse, the pain worse with time. And instead, if you streamline your desires by really looking at what is truly needed, then, or you dovetail your desire, we'll get into that concept, then that is the lasting way to peace. Now, our scriptures, what do they inform us? That, Savasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma hrida kasya swadhanam. It says that all the animate and inanimate objects within this universe, they are controlled and owned by the Lord. So we should not have a sense of proprietorship. Anything that is needed for us, more than what we need necessary or from our quota, it should be set aside as his quota. It's a big ask. In fact, Swami Vivekananda had also said, somebody asked him, what is poison? And he said, anything over and above, then what we need is poison. A very strong statement. Yeah. So it says that everything belongs to God. So there is no question of proprietorship over anything. My land, my home, my kids, my property. That is the second part that gives us lack of peace. And even when we offer something back to God, it is just like a child taking money from father and offering back a gift to him. Truly nothing belongs to us. A child comes to his father, say, Dad, can I have 100 rupees from you? And then he takes 100 rupees so that he can buy a gift and give it back to his dad. End of the day, it all belongs to his dad only. Same way, we have nothing. Everything has been given to us by God. So when we give it back to him, actually it truly belongs to him only. So that sense of proprietorship results in lack of peace. That is the second thing that this shloka talks about. And it's actually, if you look at it, this is a journey from empty hand to empty hand. In between, we accumulate stuff. We think we develop a sense of proprietorship. My kid, my family, my body, relatives, my money, and all that stuff. But we come empty hand, we leave empty hand. And there's a story of great Alexander. He said that when you put me to coffin, put my hands out so that world can see even the great Alexander departed this world with his hands empty. And Kabir Das ji say, Mati kahe Kumar se tu kyun ronde moe, ek din aisa aayega main rondungi toye. So even that is the reality of life. We will come empty handed and go that. And there's no need for us to have pride. End of the day, we will go back to the soil, the mitti, mati. Soul will have its journey. And, the sooner we get that point, the closer we'll get to the peace. Now, let's look at the peace formula here that God is giving. He's saying that if you let go of these things, what are these things? The material desire, the ego, the greed, and proprietorship. If you let go of it, then you get the perfect peace, each one of them. So in this particular lifetime, if you look at it, if we have actually reduced each one of these, then we have done a good job. Reduced or eliminated. But if we have increased it, then we have not done a good job. That means we have entrenched ourselves further into this world and made it obligatory for our soul to continue this journey in 8.4 million species. So with that, I know I've been speaking a lot, and today we had to end on time or maybe a little early because Swamiji's session is going to start as well. The question that I want to pose before we make some announcements is there a silver bullet to address all four of these systematically and effectively, where we reduce our material desires, ego, greed, proprietorship, and pretty much everything? Let's get started. I know we had to make some announcements as well. So let's get the discussion going and then we'll get into some announcements as well.
I just wanted to, I just checked that it looks like the lecture will start at 10 only. So we have time. Yeah.
Okay, we have time. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, okay. So to get the discussion going, I think Shri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Shri Ramya. Please go ahead.
Silver bullet from all that I've been learning from you and Swamiji is attaching your mind to powder. Nothing better than that.
Good. That's true. Very true. Attaching, and we'll get into that as well. Yes. How does that work? Beautiful, Shri Ramya. Very nice. Yes, Surendra ji.
Radhe
Radhe
Radhe.
Prabhu.
You after long. Radhe Radhe.
So, I'm surprised that we are at 7 degrees. You are at minus 20, minus 10. The last is now listed here in the newspapers.
It's cold there, and I'm in Seattle right now, by the way. So it's equally as
better
cold.
than Dallas.
I mean, it's pretty cold here as well, but I think Dallas is also kind of.
Yeah, Dallas is minus 20 something.
Yes.
मेरा मुझ में कुछ नहीं, जो कुछ है सो तोड़. I think that answers the silver bullet.
Very true. Very true. That's the way to look at it actually. And
मेरे को तेरा कर दो बस.
मेरे को तेरा कर दो. Very true. See, I've taken off my backdrop in a bit in case somebody comes, right? I'll have to move. So,
okay.
No worries. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
And there is also a message from Manish ji. He also says sadhana and attach mind to God is silver bullet.
Sadhana and attach mind to God is silver. But how is it a silver bullet? Let's get a little bit into that as well. Sumesh ji, you wanted to add something?
Guru Nanak Dev ji said that नानक नन्हे ही रहो जैसे नन्हे दूब बड़े रुख सुख जाई हैं दूब खूब की खूब.
Very nice. Guru Nanak, what does it mean basically? Can you repeat that once more?
नानक नन्हे ही रहो जैसे नन्हे दूब.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
नानक नन्हे ही रहो जैसे नन्हे दूब बड़े रुख सुख जाई हैं दूब खूब की खूब.
Okay. Yeah, I had to again got an announcement, so couldn't hear it. Sandhya is going to explain the meaning of it now. Go ahead, Sandhya.
Sumesh ji, would you like to?
Can I explain in
Yeah,
Hindi?
please.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
इसका मतलब कि नानक जी कहते हैं कि दूब के जैसा रहो, जैसे छोटे दूब होते हैं,
Oh, दूब,
दूब
yeah.
घास, वैसे बड़े जो होते हैं वो रुक सूख जाते हैं, पर दूब वो नहीं सूखता है, वो जैसा का तैसा रहता है.
Very true. Very true. Yes, that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had. They see all these saints, they talk the same thing. There's such a beautiful common denominator in all the saints, what they are telling you. They are not contradicting. All the principles is essentially the same. Even if you go across different traditions or religions, they are essentially saying the same, right? Even Bible says that love God with all thy heart and all thy might. You brought in this Doob example and Trinadapi Sunichen Tarorapi Sahishnuna. It reiterates the same thing. Now, getting back to the silver bullet that we were talking about, yes, bhakti or attaching your mind to God is like that silver bullet. See, it's like when we eat food, do we really worry about now, the bile juices, it is mixing with that, and now it is going to become rus, and then now it is going to become blood, and now it will go to this part and that part and all that stuff? We don't. Similarly, when we take a medicine, we don't really think now what stage it will be. It will do its job. So bhakti does its job as well. When we increase our devotion, see, the devotional path, unlike the Gyan Marg, is a practice of emotions where you utilize your emotions to actually bring God into your heart. And it's like wax. If our heart is like a cold wax, when you bring in those emotions, it melts. And only when it melts, it can take on the color of God. And when that happens, so all the things that actually worry, which are not good for us, like material desires, will start subsiding, because now you'll start tasting higher ras. Right? If you start tasting something sweet, especially if you have a sweet tooth, then you will probably not take up anything lesser than that, right? If you are used to having a nice sweet, then you would not go for neem. So you start losing interest in materialists because you start getting higher ras. The ego aspect is also because now you understand that it's not that you who's the doer. So that sense of gratitude, that sense of giving the credit where it truly belongs, starts coming in naturally, because you don't want to have a stealing mentality where somebody else is giving you the power and you are taking the credit for yourself. That mindset will also be eliminated by your devotion. The third is greed, and proprietorship will also automatically go away when you start understanding it's God is the ultimate master of everything. He has enabled these resources for us, including our money, our kids, our parents, our family, our the material opulences, all that stuff. He has enabled it. So you lose that sense of proprietorship over a period of time as well, because saints, they do understand nothing truly belongs to them. And the greed aspect is anyway taken care of because your surrender is increasing. Think of Bhikshu, or for that matter, even Swamiji, right? I mean, he's dependent on people for his food and everything. And if you look at saints, they would not plan ahead other than the meal that they get in through Bhiksha. Do they store things that winter is coming, I'm not going to get food, or things like they don't? So all that stuff starts coming in where you start acquiring a minimalist life mindset as well. So that is where the silver bullet is bhakti, where you do bhakti and rest all that you need will automatically start falling in place. You don't have to work on one aspect, thing at a time. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on my greed for 1 year, then on sense of proprietorship, then another year, then on my ego, another year, and then basically on material desires, maybe for the rest of my life. All will be taken care of simultaneously, automatically. Yes, Sandhya?
There's a comment from OnePlus DN2101. All these things will be there if we consider we all are different, but all are same. We are all souls, which is part of the Supreme Soul.
Who say that? Sorry, there was an announcement going on.
OnePlus DN2101.
Okay. Yeah, actually, we all are parts of God only, and it's like an ecosystem where we have a mutual dependency. Actually, we don't actually operate in isolation. It's like a part of a big body. Even one part is in trouble, the entire body will, the remaining things will also not feel comfortable. Very true. So that sense itself, interconnectedness, part of it will also bring in a lot of perspective around how we operate and take care of not only others but ourselves as well. Ourselves to
No.
begin. Yes,
Yeah,
Sanya?
see if you want to rename or raise hand and speak yourself, please
I have to
consider
know
it.
your name. Yeah.
And Surendraji has also sent in a comment, consider ourselves as trustee of all that is Tera, silver or even golden bullet for real peace.
Yes, trustee. That example of Shivaji, right? His guru, when he offers his kingdom to him, and guru says, now that you have offered to me, I take it. But I offer it back to you. Now run it like you're running it as a trustee, not as a king. So that sense, when it comes, then we automatically become responsible. See, it starts with ourselves only. Even taking care of our body, if we consider it as a trustee, that God has given us this rental for a while for some purpose, then we will not even abuse it. We'll treat it like a temple. And if you extend or extrapolate that argument to all the relationships and everything around, that will simplify life. Easier said than done, but yeah, that's a great tool actually. If we can think of ourselves as a trustee, not as an owner. Great. All right. Anything else? I want to make some announcements today. I know we will finish on time today, dot at 10 or 9:30 at your time, because we have Swamiji's lecture coming up, and the place where I'm sitting, it's going to close down as well. So we just have to close it on time today. But tomorrow's session, we will continue the same way, because I think Swamiji's lecture are going to be at 9:30 every day. So we'll continue with our sessions for the rest of the week as well.
Yes. Can we also have that participant cheering presentation by
Yes.
Jyoti?
I think Jyoti, please go
Jyoti,
ahead.
can you please raise your hand once? If you're ready and around. Okay. In the meanwhile, I'll just make announcements.
Sure.
So as we just said that Swamiji's lecture will be there. So that is basically part of an ongoing Bhakti Sadhana Shivir in Bandra, in Odisha in India. And there are wonderful lectures by Swamiji on different sutras of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So if any of you are interested in attending it, I have shared the link in the chat. So you can register yourself and start attending. This is a 7-day long camp or shivir, which all of us can participate in virtually as well. Apart from that, I think there's another set of new classes on Narad Bhakti Darshan, Narad Bhakti sessions, which is starting from Thursday, January 5th. Every day they'll be at 8 p.m. CST and 7:30 a.m. IST. And you can attend those classes from the same Zoom link. So yes, every Thursday, not every day. Okay, and I will make Jyoti co-host so she can start sharing a presentation.
Yes, Jyoti, please go ahead. All yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Jyoti, we can hear you. Radhe
Okay.
Radhe.
Radhe. Can you see the screen?
Not yet. Can you start sharing it again?
I'll try again. Otherwise, you will have to share as we did previously, but I'll try. I cannot. Is there any possibility that you can share?
I can. Can you send me the? Have you sent?
Okay, I can share now. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
But the thing is, I present here. Yeah. So this time, so we have a lot of participants and everyone was so amazing. So this time it was difficult to choose the best one. So what we had decided with that we'll cheer all the participants who were engaged. So first I would like to say thanks to all the participants who kept their video on. Sandhya ji, Aparna ji, Rahul ji, Arun ji, Jyoti Sahani ji, Nilesh ji, Sefali ji, Seema ji, Shan ji, Sunita ji, Surya Prakash Rao ji, Sumesh ji, Shyam ji, and Himani ji, Jagrut ji, Sairam ji, Ramya ji, and oh, I think I shared the older one. My bad. So participation of the week, the recitation, it goes to Dinesh ji, Ramya ji, Shyam ji, Asutosh ji, Sandhya ji, Sam ji, Riya ji, Rahul ji, Aparna ji, Shri Ramya ji, and Akshata ji. So these people who took part in the recitation, it was so amazing. So it was very difficult to decide on the best one. So, and for the participation of the week, best bhajan or bhajan chanting award goes to Swati ji, Sandhya ji, Nitin ji, Shyam ji, Manish ji, Manoranjan ji, Dinesh ji, Shumesh ji, and Sairam ji. And best singing award goes to Neetu ji, Himangini ji, and Pooja ji, who is Seema ji's sister, who we heard on
That is debut. Best
audio.
debut.
Yeah, debut. These are debut award. Yeah. So debut award goes to Neetu ji, Himangini ji, and Pooja ji. And most engaging participants for last 2 weeks were Urvi ji, Sham ji, Vinisha ji, Sandhya ji, Bheen Shankar ji, Nilesh ji, Sandhya ji, Sam ji, Monica ji, and there are few more names. Somehow I'm not able to see because now it is. So Aarti ji, Arun ji, Annapurna ji, Preeti ji, Rahul ji, Anita ji, Swati ji, and Akshata ji. And last but not the least, so these are the participants who kept their video on, and till now this is the maximum participant which I have seen who have kept their video on. So it's Sam ji, Shyam ji, Praghi ji, Sandhya ji, both the Sandhya jis, Sumesh ji, Surya Prakash Rao ji, Kripa ji, Aparna ji, Pramod ji, Pallavi ji, Monika ji, Shri Ramya ji, Dinesh ji, Sapali ji, Rahul ji, Arun ji, Aparna ji, Sairam ji, Chetan ji, Sam ji, Annapurna ji, Asutosh ji, Surya Prakash ji, Amruta Vani ji, Ramesh ji, Manish ji, Nilesh ji, Barkha ji, Urvi ji, Uday Kumar ji, Seema ji, and Vayan ji. So cheers to you all. Thank you for being so engaging participants at the
Thanks, Jyoti, for naming all the participants one by one. So fantastic work. And the best pair of eyes award to Jyoti for the week. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your enthusiastic participation, turning your videos on and all that stuff. So I really look forward to your engaging participation during the first week celebration that we are going to do. So we'll announce it shortly and continue with the discussions forward. So thank you, everybody. Anything last minute, because I may have to wrap up a little early today. One of the unusual places I've been taking session from. So we've got a bit of a time constraint today around it. Yes, Shyamji, Jyoti, Shyamji.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing beforehand, like I forgot to mention, please fill out the feedback tracker. I have shared the link for it multiple times, and also the latest in the chat. So please put your comments, questions, feedback in this. Yes, I guess that's it. So Shyamji, yeah, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
This was not anything, this but one incident happened last week. Can I share my incident? Can I share mine?
Yeah, sure. Real quick. I
Yeah,
have
quick.
about
2 minutes. My daughter had a flight for Vancouver last evening. So we had planned to go to Vrindavan, Banki Bihari ji, on Sunday. So Sunday being a very heavy day, it was all jam-packed. So we had to park a car outside the Vrindavan. And we took a rickshaw from there to the Banki Bihari temple. Just 50 minutes before the... I'll just wait for 2 minutes. It is on. So we had to park our car outside the temple. It's from there, it is about 3 kilometers to the temple itself. Nitinji, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, he can hear. He's.
And then we took a auto rickshaw from there to temple itself. So just before 50 minutes from the temple, it was a crowded street, as we all know that, and rickshaw came from opposite direction and hit our rickshaw. And my daughter's hand was outside, unluckily. So it hit her on the hand. And my niece was there in her lap, so it also hit her on the knee, behind the knee. So she cried in pain, and we didn't know what happened. And so for there, we were there for almost 2 minutes, and then suddenly we decided that we cannot go to meet Banki Bihari Ji. It was almost there. We were almost there. So we had to rush back to Delhi. And on the midway, we had to consult a doctor. And it was then we found out that she had a fracture in her right hand. So she could not catch a flight last evening to Vancouver because she has classes from 2nd January. So what I'm trying to say here is that we were so near to Banki Bihari Ji. We could not meet him. She had a flight to catch last evening. She could not catch the flight. And then I can imagine the way she is going through, her emotional trauma, the mental distress she's going through. So this is all Hodi, as I want to say. Being yet so near, we were so far. We were almost there. We could not meet Banki Bihari Ji. We had to come back rushing. And she had a lot of pain, and it's a fracture now. So she has a cast for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, the doctor will examine her again, and then we'll plan a course of action. So what I want to say is that Krishna is great. We can, and we are trying to decode this, all what happened, why it happened. It's a good or bad. And we being humans, we're trying to decode things. Ki aisa acha hua, bura hua, kyo hua, kaise hua. What is the good in that, or what is the bad in that? Still trying to figure out, but then I gave up. Let's not go there, because that's we all humans are. We try to examine things. We try to be real with God. So let's respect his plan. Let's respect his region. Let's go with him. Maybe he has a better way for us, better plan for us. That's it. And now she will only be able to join, I guess, somewhere in mid-February or mid-end of February. So this is all I want to say. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you for sharing that. I hope she feels better. I mean, to hear that basically. But yeah, hindsight provides us a great wisdom. So maybe when we will be able to connect the dots down the line, then we will be able to see that. But immediately it may not seem so apparent, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I'll narrate you our experience here as well. So what is good, what is bad, we don't know. To be honest, we just have to trust God's plan for us and take our best foot forwards, rather than bringing in those complaints and all the things that our mind will play tricks with. So, but this is a great way of looking at it, and I'm sure in hindsight you will be able to connect the dots and see that God's plan is always perfect for us.
We were almost there. We were almost there. We were almost there at the edge, at the gate of the temple, and we just could not go inside. That's the main thing I want to share. That we were almost there at that gate of the Banki Bihari temple, and then we had to come back.
But I really wish her a speedy recovery, and just sending you a lot of strength for that. So
thank you so much. Yeah.
No worries. So I have to wrap up now before I get thrown out of this place. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and I think this is Swamiji's lecture starting in a few minutes as well. So Radhe Radhe, have a wonderful day and a great rest of your evening ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. We'll continue on this shloka and the next one before we graduate to chapter 3 and then back on our journey on chapter 4. So Radhe Radhe, and thank you from my side, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Radhe Radhe, and Shamji. I hope she quickly recovers, and I appreciate your spirits around it. And also kudos to you, Nitinji, for taking the session from a mall. Like you set different standards for all of us.
No, it just happened. So, okay. So, and luckily I got a place, and the time, they're closing dot in 2 minutes. There are so many announcements they made, so I better rush now. But I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your engaging participation. Radhe Radhe. I hope you all get to attend Swamiji's upcoming lecture.
Yes. Radhe Radhe, everyone.